Hi everybody, it is Stephanie Jensen, the author of Dissecting House, and I am bringing you a very special video blog, the best books to read during Halloween. Now, Halloween is my favorite time of the year. I'm always spooky personally, but like everybody else gets spooky and it's just a lot of fun. Personally, I always read horror books. But there are definitely some books that will get you in the Halloween spirit, just in case you're not already in the Halloween spirit. I mean, I personally am. So just giving everybody an FYI, my cat decided to jump up. She is lying here right next to me on the couch, and she does have a little habit of meowing because she is a little baby. She always wants my attention. She always wants something. So just in case you randomly hear meow in the camera, then that's Cece. Here. You can see her really quick. Cece, you want to say hi? You want to say hi? Without further ado, let's begin. Now, and also, these books are in absolute no order. Well, technically the books might be in a little bit of an order because I specifically wanted to start with the king of all things spooky, Edgar Allan Poe. So this is the complete stories that I have. I've had these books for years. I just grabbed them from my bookshelf. I don't even know. Yeah, this book has all of Poe's best work: Telltale Heart, Follow the House of Usher, Cask of Amontillado, Pen and Pendulum. I saw The Raven as on here, Mask of the Red Death. I have not read these stories in a while. I kind of want to revisit them soon, so it's a good thing that this is on my list. So, I mean, where can I begin with Edgar Allan Poe? If it wasn't for him, the horror writings, even the film world, would not exist. Like, this man is a legend among all writers in general, but especially horror writers. Especially for his time, he was really writing some out there, I guess you can say, stories. There is one writing style. One day I will try and perfect this, but I'm going to mention this writing technique later when I get onto another spooky writer king. That should be a hint. I can't wink. Anyway, but yes, so a specific writing technique is that I really want to perfect is when your story is violent, but you don't actually show any violence, if that makes sense. Just something about the entire scene is so intense, it feels violent. Like, the scenario, the plot, the characters, what the characters are doing, how they're interacting with each other. One thing with Edgar Allan Poe is I really think that he perfects this. Like, let's use the example of the Cask of Amontillado, where, you know, the guy is essentially suffocating another man in a brick wall. I mean, technically that would be violent, but that's not in the violent way that we would, you know. But still, I mean, that story disturbed the shit out of me when I was younger, when I first started reading Edgar Allan Poe, and it's still a very, very disturbing thought. So the fact that I don't even know when. Sure enough, I have Edgar Allan Poe's biography back here, 1809 to 1849. Wow, he was only 40 when he died. I did not realize he was that young. Anyway, so yeah, in like the early to mid 19th century, and he was writing these disturbing stories. I mean, it really, you know, he really was an innovator for his time, and he, like I said, he opened up the way for modern horror writers. So, hell yeah, Edgar Allan Poe. I'm probably going to reread some of these stories very soon for the Halloween season, so yeah. The next book that I want to talk about is actually on my iPad. It is Clyde Barker, I have Books of Blood. I actually have a few Clyde Barker books, but I don't have any physical ones, so I have them all on my Kindle, but figure Books of Blood would be the best first one to start with. You know, once again, if we're going to talk about, well, a modern horror innovator, but definitely Clyde Barker, because something about his stories, you know, it's, and I know I talk about this a lot on my blogs, and I complained about this, but it's so hard to find unique horror because the genre is just so oversaturated, and I feel like, you know, whether writers, filmmakers, whatever, it's like they're just reproducing the same stories, but I mean, you'll never see another Hellraiser again. You know what I mean? You'll never see another Nightbreed again. Like, Clyde Barker just really is an absolute genius. I just started reading Books of Blood. I've never actually read these before. But so far, so good. The first couple of pages of the first story is good. But I'm sure it will get better. I mean, I know that the story compilation has inspired so many writers, so I am very much excited to finish it. But yes, this is the book, story, whatever thing that I'm currently reading now. And I should also say I have been addicted to my Kindle. At first, and I'm gonna go on like another blog talking about this more in depth, but I used to hate Kindles because I was like, if you want to read a book, it has to be a physical book, not a digital book. But then I got an iPad as a graduation gift when I graduated from college, and I downloaded the Kindle app because why not? And now I am addicted to Kindle. I like barely buy any books, print books anymore. They're all on Kindle. Because it's just, you don't have to, like, I remember when I was younger and I'd be in school with all my books, like, and not even my textbooks, like my book books, just walking around, looking them around, and now it's just, I have so many books in this thing. It's the best thing ever. I see. Now, once again, I have all these books, I'm just shuffling them all around. Okay, so there's actually, I'll put my iPad not underneath the Edgar Allan Poe book because I don't want the iPad to get scratched. That might be a very, very good idea. Anyway, hi. Okay, so the next book is, well, this is a specific book, but just everybody should have a serial killer book, right? Serial killer, spooky, yay, scary, whatever. Like, other than, you know, ghost stories or whatever. I'm always the type of person, I'm more like, the real life scares me, true crime scares me, unsolved mysteries, that's what scares the absolute crap out of me, because I'm sure it would be more likely I would run into some, like, killer, I don't know, than, like, a demon or whatever. So that's why real life scares me. This book that I have, well, this is just one of the many serial killer books out there. This is Human Monsters by David Everett, an illustrated encyclopedia of the world's most vicious murderers. And as you can see, well, you know, I'm just going to contradict myself, and I'm talking about my obsession with Kindles now. I still read print books. See this as a bookmark. I'm still in the process of reading this, but this has been one of my favorite books because they really go into some killers that I've never heard of. And if I have heard of them, like, I think the last page, or the one I'm on, was like a big old thing on Ted Bundy or something. Like, yep, sure enough, boom, there he is, Ted Bundy. So yeah, what was I gonna say? But then the killers that are mentioned in here that I'm already familiar with, they have more information about it, so very, very interesting stuff. I've always try to avoid talking about my interest in serial killers because I know it's becoming more of a taboo topic because nobody wants to idolize someone who does heinous, horrible things to others. And I was very, very careful of how I represented Mina in my book, Dissecting House. I didn't want her to be a character that people worshipped. You know, I wanted to make her out to be, like, a piece of shit, like a evil person, you know? So that's why, but at the same time, I don't feel like we should be deprived of, you know, killers, true crime, because I feel like when we do repress it and then we just have like false ideas of the world that everybody is wonderful, everybody is nice, then you become too trusting, and so I think that's another important reason why I think we should all read these stories, even though they can be grim and grotesque and not very fun. They can scare the crap out of you like they do me, but it really teaches you to keep you on your toes and to not trust people. And to be aware of your surroundings. That is something that my parents have always taught me anyway. So if you're like me and you get freaked out about killers, then definitely pick up a serial killer book. Well, technically I'm going to be mentioning 3 horror kings in this review, but the next one is H.P. Lovecraft. Now, see, remember I was going to mention my cat. She just made a little noise. Meow. Yes, hi. Yes, you like H.P. Lovecraft, CC? Is that why you're meowing? Anyway, so yes, H.P. Lovecraft. I have a couple of these books. This is The Call of Cthulhu and Other Weird Stories. Well, obviously this has The Call of Cthulhu in it. I think this one also has Reanimator. Blah blah blah. I don't even remember what all is in this one. Oh yeah, Dagon. Oh, there it is. I was like, where the hell's the table of contents? I just went right past it. So yeah, it has Dagon, Call of Cthulhu, it's Color Out of Space. I did not realize that. Shadow over Innsmouth. Yes, I don't even think I finished reading this one yet. Yeah, because I haven't read past Reanimator. I have another one of his compilations. It has The Doom That Came to Sarnath, From Beyond. Has a few good ones. I can't even remember the rest off the top of my head. But yeah, so, yes, H.P. Lovecraft. I know, and he's also been getting some pretty negative attention because it's come to light that H.P. Lovecraft was a racist piece of shit, to say the least. Actually, in Reanimator, when I was reading it, this is kind of how I figured this out, because there's a part where it was from Herbert West's perspective, and he was saying something, like, it was like the dialogue was, like, testing the vial on black corpse, and if it would react the same, and I'm thinking, what? So then I did some research, and yeah, sure enough, H.P. Lovecraft was not a very nice person to people of color and to immigrants, so I don't really like that very much. I don't like racist and xenophobic people at all. I don't think anybody should. But Lovecraft is a genius, and once again, another one of the biggest horror innovators, sci-fi innovators, especially since Lovecraft, I feel like he was one of, not the first writer, but definitely one of the first to kind of perfect a more scientific view of horror, if that makes sense. Like, really combine, like, make horror more realistic. Lovecraft does tend to get wordy. I think it might be something along for the period style of writing. But then again, I never thought Poe was wordy. I'm kind of a stickler when it comes to overly complex and wordy, descriptive writing. I wrote a whole blog post. If you go to infernalhorror.com, you will read my blog post about writing without fluff. So, but like I said, it could be a period type of deal, maybe during the early 20th century or whatever the hell it was that Lovecraft wrote these books. I don't even remember right now off the top of my head, but yeah. But overall, I mean, Lovecraft stories are completely out there. They're unique. They are absolutely terrifying. I think anybody would be scared shitless if they met up with Cthulhu, or if a reanimated corpse attacked them, or, yeah. I don't know, they met Dagon, you know, whatever, all of other of Lovecraft's scary monsters and whatnot. So yeah, Lovecraft is also, I just realized, I thought I finished this book, but looking back, like, I don't even think I read some of these stories in here. So I'm definitely going to be reading this for the Halloween season. I have a lot of reading to do. Now, I'm sure you're all going to laugh when I present this next book. Scary Stories Tell in the Dark. Now, okay, if it wasn't for these stories and another book or another book series that will also be on this list, kind of, sort of. It's not on this list because I don't have the physical books, but it is because it has to be. But anyway, if it wasn't for this series, I would not be a horror writer. Like, I remember discovering these books when I was a kid from my brother because he found them at school. Why did they have these books at school? These books were terrifying. But whatever. Anyway, my brother found these books at school, which then well, at first he told me, and I'll never forget, it was High Beams. He told me that story because he knew it was scary, and sure enough, it did, because that story is terrifying. So he then was like, "Oh, hey, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, there you go." And I was like, "Okay." So then I read them, and I was like, "Okay, I'm not sleeping ever again." Yeah, High Beams, the Scarecrow one. What else? Those were definitely the ones that scared me the most. And it's funny, I still pick up this book and I read these stories all the time as an adult. Am I losing sleep over this book anymore? No. But it's more like, it's interesting. Like, these stories are very interesting, and they're a quick read, and they're a quick read, but they're very, very well written. Like, even adults can enjoy this, which I actually learned in my creative writing courses. That is a lot more difficult to achieve than you think. Writing stories for both adults and kids. Like, the master of that is J.K. Rowling, but that's another topic. And I'm also going to get into this. Well, technically there's also another master of that, and this other writer will be on this list. So I will get to that writer later. But if you're kind of like, okay, so do I have time to read? No. But will I try and read all of these books? Yes. But if you're like me and you really don't have time to read, but you want to read something spooky, then boom. Scary Stories Tell in the Dark. Like I said, really quick read. Some of these are more like poems. Like, they're really, really short. So, yep. Always a classic. Well, this is technically not a book. This is more of a trilogy that I have. But it is Anne Rice, The Vampire Chronicles. And now, first off, I cannot remember who the publisher of these books are. Let me just... Alfred A. Knopf? Okay. So, I actually have a few because I guess this publisher republished a whole bunch of books. I have, like, Grimm's Fairy Tales. I have Hans Christian Andersen. I have a few other books that were republished by this publishing company. This is absolutely beautiful. I love this design, these pages. I don't know if you can see, they're gold. Oh my goodness. So beautiful. And then the tassel, well, the tassel's hidden, but let me see if I can pull it out. Ugh. Here it is. See, it has like a red tassel. I don't know if, I don't want to take it out because I think I was in the process of reading Queen of the Damned last I opened this book. I don't want to lose my page. But yes, so Anne Rice, Vampire Chronicles, but I will specifically talk about Interview with the Vampire, because that's a classic. I mean, of course, watch the movie because Brad Pitt looks really hot in that movie. He's a very sexy vampire. I will have to say, he's a very, very sexy vampire. But of course, I'm one of those, the book is better than the movies type of people, because Interview with the Vampire book is absolutely amazing. What I really respect about Anne Rice, specifically with these books, is that she, well, I don't know if she was the first, but she was definitely one of the pioneers to make the vampire or the monster out to be more human. Or maybe not more human, but more personable. Like, you really get to know Lestat, and kind of how he evolved and how he turned Brad Pitt's character, and his name is eluding me right now, and little girl Claudia. These books are definitely legendary. Only thing I will say about Anne Rice's writing, kind of like what I said about Lovecraft's writing, her writing tends to get wordy, like overly descriptive, but it never hindered me from reading any of her books. I have a few more Anne Rice books. One, I think it's called Lasher. I found it at like a thrift store or something, like flea market, I don't know. Never heard of it. I bought it. I haven't read it yet. That will be on my list of books to read. See, this is what, because I have so many books I need to read, so this is how I organize myself. I read a Kindle book and a print book at the same time. It sounds very unorganized. I'm a very unorganized person. Asher is a print book, so after I finish this serial killer one, which, yeah, I'm almost done with it, so hopefully very soon I will be starting Lasher, but definitely Vampire Chronicles. If you don't have this nifty book or all the books in this series, then in one book, then at least read Interview with the Vampire. Absolute classic. The next book is, well, can't really see it from here, but it's a Stephen... Yes, Cece, do you like Stephen King? Wow! Yes, you like Stephen King. I like Stephen King too. It's Stephen King. Since Stephen King has written like 10,000 books, I'm not going to tell you which one. This is surprisingly the only print Stephen King book I have. This is Desperation. I thought it was kind of lame, honestly. It's not one of my favorite Stephen King books. Surprisingly, my favorite Stephen King story is actually a short story. And it's called it's either The Man in the Black Suit or The Man in the Dark Suit. Like, do you remember how I mentioned the writing technique where the book or the story is very violent, but there is no violence? The Man in the Dark/Black Suit is the epitome of that writing style. That book scared, or that, it's a short story. Why am I saying a book? It's a short story. That short story to this day scares the absolute shit out of me. What it's about, a little boy meets Satan, and Satan is a man in a black suit. It's just, from the minute you start reading it, it just gets more disturbing and disturbing and disturbing and disturbing until just, you just don't have a soul anymore. That's all I can say. It's just that story alone, just like, it scares the soul right out of you. I don't even know if that's an expression. It is now. I came up with it. Woohoo! So, yeah, Stephen King. Like I said, his, like, some books, like I said, the guy has like 50,000 books. So some are better than others. This is not one of my favorites, but it just so happens to be the only one that I own. All the other Stephen King books I read, they weren't mine. I borrowed them from other people. But yeah, Stephen King. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Any of his books. Your favorites? A new one? Stephen King it up. See, like I said, the king of horror, the king, Stephen King, durr. But yeah, and I just realized this whole time I've been holding this book upside down. There we go. There's his name. Yay, Stephen King. Woo! The next book is another one of my favorites. I don't know how many times I have read this book. Frankenstein. Now, I've never really cared. It's not that I never cared for the Hollywood movie. but like the book is just so much better because it really goes more in depth with the story and also who Dr. Frankenstein is. Not just the monster, but who he is. And you really get a better idea of Mary Shelley's purpose for writing this book, especially when you look into like the story came to her in a dream, and she just scared her husband and her colleagues talking about this dream, so she was like, okay, I'm gonna write a book. So that's where Frankenstein comes in. I don't know if anybody in Viewerland has ever watched the show Penny Dreadful. They actually do a very, very good interpretation of Frankenstein's monster. But anyway, but yes, of course, Frankenstein. I feel like this is a book that nobody ever talks about because it's not really scary. I don't think it's scary. It's just interesting. And if you just want a break from watching horror films, or I'm sure people are going to be watching like all the classic monster films. If you don't want to watch the classic Frankenstein film, I'd say read the Mary Shelley book if you haven't yet, because it is absolutely amazing. Like I said, you just get a very, very in-depth view of the entire story and kind of... So I actually had to write a paper on Frankenstein, and you know, a major premise of this book is telling the reader how dangerous technology is, and especially if we're looking at our modern age, technology is really taking over. You know, we're relying more on technology, and now there are more ways for technology to destroy us, whether it be from, you know, hackers, or whether it be from an addiction, you know, destroying us mentally. So definitely reading Frankenstein in the modern digital age, whatever you want to call it, is definitely very, very interesting. As you can see, it's a pretty short book. It's an easy... How many pages is this? About 200 pages. So it's a pretty quick read. I mean, I've always read this book in like a couple weeks at the most type of deal. And Mary Shelley doesn't go overly descriptive. It's pretty easy to read considering the year 1816, considering, you know, the early 19th century. So very, very easy, quick read. So yep, definitely I suggest everybody read Frankenstein, an absolute classic. Next book, the last book I want to talk about, is the one that I don't have a physical book share with you guys, but well, technically it's not a book, it's a series of books, and those series are Goosebumps! Yay! I love Goosebumps! If you read my blog, I wrote a blog about the best horror books for kids. Goosebumps was one of them. Seriously, if it wasn't for freaking R.L. Stine, I would not be where I am today. Like, R.L. Stine and Alan Schwartz, I think, where is Scary Stories? Yep, well, it just says Schwartz. I think Alan Schwartz, whatever. His name is Alan Schwartz now. Let's figure it out. Let's see if I'm correct. See if I have a good memory. Anyway, but yes, R.L. Stine's and Alan Schwartz. If it wasn't for them, I would not be where I am today. Point blank. Because I just fell in love with horror as a kid. And Goosebumps, like, I had all of them. If there was a goosebump, I had it. Oh my goodness, like, what are some of my favorites? Night in Terror Tower, the Mummy ones, I don't remember what they're actually called. The Haunted House, the very, very first one, I don't remember what that one is called. The Mummy, I said the Mummy, the Dummy. The Dummy, the green ooze in the basement. See, it's like, I don't remember what these book titles are called, but I remember what they are, and I can see the cover. But yes, definitely I would have to say the Mummy one, and Night in Terror Tower, and The Haunted House are probably my 3 favorite Goosebumps books. Like I mentioned before, talking about Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, how it's very difficult to write stories that are appropriate for kids, but are also, you know, interesting for adults. As far as horror goes, R.L. Stine is the absolute master of that. I actually just reread some Goosebumps books as an adult, and I forgot how amazing they are and how interesting and well written. And like I said, they're suitable for kids, but you know, they're a nice easy read for adults, but they're not like, it's not written in little kid language, you know what I mean? Like, think like Harry Potter, but horror. Like, because anybody at any age can read Harry Potter. But, and same with Goosebumps, that anybody at any age or any walk of life can read Goosebumps and they will get enjoyment out of it. So I'm definitely want to read all, or not all, there's a lot of Goosebumps books. Oh, definitely the majority of the Goosebumps books in the series. Or all my old favorites, whatever. So now I'm going to stop this video because I only have 4 minutes left of recording time, so I'm just going to make this quick. Another book, if you have read all the books that I have mentioned and want something new, you can always read Dissecting House. Yay! This is my book. Stephanie Jensen. Boom, there I am. Only thing I will say, and I guess I will just announce this now, I am re-releasing this as a 2nd edition. I am changing my author name. I'm just going to add my middle initial because I found out there's already an author by the name of Stephanie Jensen. So, but you can still buy Dissecting House. You can still buy this book. You will find the link to order it on Amazon in the description of this video. And of course, the usual, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more horror content, for more content on writing. I also post more on my blog, infernalhorror.com, so check out my blog. Follow us on social media. Infernal Horror is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I will have all the links for that in the description of this video as well. And thank you everybody for watching, and be sure to stay spooky this Halloween season and keep reading. Bye!